The fortress of Mustafar rose like a scar over the river of lava, and within it, Darth Vader meditated in his back-to-chamber. The dark side consumed him more with each passing day, fed by memories of everything he had lost. He could feel the weight of his choices crushing his soul. Each breath through the helmet was a reminder of his fall. But that night, something different happened. The Force moved strangely around him, creating ripples he couldn't comprehend. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being folded, twisted by a will greater than his or the Emperor's. Vader stopped his meditation, his sensors detecting anomalies in the vital energy that permeated the entire galaxy. Something was happening, something that defied his understanding of what was possible through the Force. The ripples intensified, forming patterns he had never witnessed. A decade earlier, in Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker woke suddenly in the middle of the night. Nightmares about Padme tormented him constantly, visions of her dying in childbirth, screaming his name as life escaped from her eyes. He rose from the bed where she slept peacefully, trying not to wake her with his agitated movements. He walked to the apartment's balcony, letting the night breeze of the planet city touch his sweat-covered face. The lights of Coruscant shone infinitely in all directions, but he saw none of it. His mind was lost in the horrors he witnessed every night, the agony of not knowing if those dreams were just fears or real premonitions. Anakin rested his hands on the balustrade, trying to calm his accelerated breathing. The cool night air brought no comfort to his tormented soul. He looked at the stars above, seeking some answer that wouldn't come. It was then that Anakin felt something inexplicable in the Force, a disturbance different from anything he had ever experienced. The vital energy that permeated the entire galaxy began to pulse intensely around him, forming patterns that defied his understanding. Before his eyes, an image began to materialize in the balcony air. It was a dark fortress, built on a volcanic planet, surrounded by rivers of lava that illuminated the dark sky with a threatening orange glow. The vision was so real that Anakin could feel the heat emanating from that infernal landscape. In the center of the image, a tall figure dressed in a black cape and a respirator helmet stood with its back to him, apparently unaware of his presence. Anakin felt his heart accelerate as he observed that impossible apparition. He blinked several times, trying to make the vision disappear, but it remained solid and real. The figure seemed to be meditating, its black cape undulating slightly with the rising heat from the lava. In Mustafar, Vader felt the same disturbance tearing through the Force. He turned abruptly in his chamber, his sensors detecting an impossible anomaly. There, floating in the air like a ghost from the past, was the image of a balcony in Coruscant, and on it a young blonde-haired man observed him with an expression of shock and confusion. Vader recognized that face instantly. It was impossible not to recognize. It was himself, decades younger, before everything that transformed him into the monster he had become. The connection between them pulsed with energy, a temporal bridge created by the Force itself for reasons neither of them understood. It was like looking into a mirror that reflected not his current appearance, but who he had been in another life. Vader felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a pang of something that could be called hope. Perhaps the Force was offering a second chance, an opportunity to change the past and avoid all the suffering. He took a step toward the image, testing the solidity of that impossible connection. Anakin took a step back, his hand instinctively going to the lightsaber attached to his belt. "Who are you?" he asked with a tense voice, trying to remain calm before that impossibility. The figure in the volcanic fortress remained motionless for a moment, and Anakin could feel invisible eyes studying him through that black helmet. Vader remained silent for a moment, processing the situation through his broken mind. "You are Anakin Skywalker," he finally said, his voice distorted by the helmet's vocoder echoing through the dimensional connection. The words came out loaded with complex emotions, recognition mixed with regret. "How do you know my name?" demanded Anakin, feeling fear growing in his chest. "I know everything about you, I remember it. It's the nightmares, isn't it? They're taking away your sleep," responded Vader with a voice laden with bitterness. Anakin felt a chill run down his spine hearing those words. He looked around the balcony, as if searching for some logical explanation, some espionage device that could have revealed his secrets. But there was nothing, only the silent night of Coruscant and that impossible connection floating in the air. The figure in black took another step toward him, and Anakin could see details of the helmet now, the red lenses that glowed with a sinister light, the respirators that emitted a mechanical and rhythmic sound. The revelation hit Anakin like a physical blow. No one knew about his nightmares, not even Obi-Wan, only Padme witnessed his restless nights. How could that sinister stranger know something so intimate, so personal? Anakin felt anger rise up his spine, an intense emotion that generated a violent disturbance in the Force. Whoever that creature was, it had no right to invade his privacy, to mention his deepest fears as if it knew them intimately. The energy around them became chaotic, waves of power clashing against each other. The connection began to waver, Vader's image trembling and distorting like agitated water. Anakin's anger was literally tearing the dimensional bridge, his fury generating turbulence in the Force itself. "No," screamed Anakin, but it was too late. He had lost control of his emotions, and now he would pay the price. The rift in reality closed abruptly, leaving him alone on the balcony under the stars of Coruscant. He remained there for hours, his mind racing in circles trying to understand what he had just witnessed. Who was that man in black, and how did he know about the nightmares that tormented his nights? Anakin looked back, seeing Padme still sleeping peacefully through the glass doors. He couldn't worry her with this, not until he understood what was happening. Anakin returned inside the apartment silently, but couldn't sleep anymore. He sat in an armchair watching Padme sleep, protecting her from threats he didn't understand. When the sun began to rise over Coruscant, he was still awake, his thoughts consumed by the mysterious figure and the volcanic fortress. During the following days, Anakin continued with his missions as a Jedi Knight, but his mind was always divided. He tried to meditate on the encounter, but couldn't find clarity. On another night, the same thing happened. The nightmares returned with renewed force, Padme dying in his arms, her last words being his name. Anakin woke in panic and immediately went to the balcony, as if something called him there. He waited, watching the horizon of the planet city, feeling the Force around him. And then it happened again. The connection began to form, the energy condensing in the air. The image of the fortress in Mustafar materialized, and there was the figure in black, waiting as if it knew Anakin would come. The connection pulsed stronger this time, more stable, as if it was strengthening with each encounter. Anakin could feel the heat of Mustafar more intensely now, could hear the distant sound of bubbling lava. This time, he was determined not to lose control, to obtain the answers he needed. "How do you know about me?" Anakin demanded immediately, his voice laden with frustration. He kept his emotions under control this time, not wanting the connection to close again. "How is it possible to know these things?" he continued, taking a step toward the floating image. Vader turned completely to face him through the dimensional rift. The Sith Lord remained silent for a moment, as if carefully choosing his words. "You wouldn't like the answer, Skywalker," he said with a voice heavy with meaning. There was something in the way he pronounced the name Skywalker, a familiarity that was both disturbing and strangely intimate. "You love her, don't you?" continued Vader, taking a step closer to the connection. "I know, I remember." The words came out loaded with an emotion that the mechanical vocoder couldn't completely hide. The mention of Padme ignited fury in Anakin's heart. How dare that stranger speak of her? How did he know about his deepest feelings? Padme was sacred to him. Their love was a secret that only few knew. Anger exploded inside him, more intense than ever before. But this time, something different happened. Instead of the connection closing as before, it expanded in response to his emotion. Anakin felt the barrier between realities weaken, become permeable. It was as if his intense emotion was feeding the dimensional bridge, making it more real, more solid. He could see details of the fortress that were previously obscure, could hear the distant sound of bubbling lava with crystalline clarity. The rift grew, becoming large enough for a person to pass through. Vader couldn't cross, Anakin could feel that, but perhaps he could. Before he could think of the consequences, Anakin launched himself forward. He tried to cross the dimensional rift, something Vader had tried and failed in the first encounter. But Anakin was different. He wasn't yet bound to the chains of the dark side. His connection with the Force was still pure despite his turbulent emotions. He passed through the barrier as if it were water, the transition being almost smooth. There was a moment of disorientation, a sensation of being in two places at once, and then he was on the other side. Suddenly, Anakin was there, physically present in Mustafar, the intense heat of the lava beating against his skin. Vader stepped back, clearly surprised that the crossing had been possible. "Impossible," murmured Vader, his voice laden with shock. The two Skywalkers stood face to face, separated by a decade of time and a universe of pain. Anakin looked around quickly, confirming he was really there. Anakin activated his lightsaber in a fluid movement, the blue blade illuminating the dark interior of the fortress. He advanced on Vader with impressive speed, pressing the weapon against his chest. "Speak now or I swear I'll finish you," Anakin threatened with a cold and controlled voice. He pressed the blade closer, its heat making Vader's systems emit warnings. Vader remained motionless, with no apparent fear of the deadly blade inches from his mechanical heart. There was a disturbing calm in the Sith Lord's posture, as if he had faced death so many times that he no longer feared it. "You have much hatred," said Vader calmly, his distorted voice echoing in the chamber. "Fear of losing her. I can feel it." The words were simple, but carried a weight of understanding that made Anakin hesitate. How could he know his feelings so intimately? Then Vader raised his hand and his own lightsaber flew to his palm. The weapon activated with a threatening roar, the blood-red blade illuminating his black helmet. Anakin stepped back, seeing the characteristic color of the Sith, understanding and horror filling his eyes. "You're a Sith," he whispered, and then attacked with all the fury that was inside him. The blades met in a blinding explosion of light. The duel had begun, and the entire fortress trembled with the power released. Anakin attacked with ferocity, but Vader blocked each blow with impossible precision. They moved through the chamber, their sabers tracing arcs of light in the air. Anakin was faster, younger, but Vader knew every movement. It was frustrating and frightening at the same time. How could this Sith anticipate every attack, every feint, every change of posture? Anakin tried a sequence he had recently developed, something only he knew, but Vader was already defending before the attack even came. The sabers clashed repeatedly, blue against red, creating a storm of sparks. Anakin spun and attacked Vader's left side, then quickly changed to the right, but the red blade was there to block. He tried to use the Force to knock Vader down, but the Sith Lord simply absorbed the attack. It was like fighting against a mirror, except the mirror had decades of additional experience. Vader didn't just block, he anticipated. Each of Anakin's movements was perfectly countered, as if Vader could see a few seconds into the future. Frustration grew in Anakin, transforming into anger. He intensified his attacks, striking faster, stronger. Vader retreated under the pressure, but his defense remained solid. They dueled through the chamber, destroying equipment and leaving burn marks on the walls. Then Vader did something unexpected. In the middle of a sequence of attacks, he withdrew from combat completely. He deactivated his saber and took several steps back, his hands rising in a gesture of peace. Anakin kept his guard high, distrustful of the sudden retreat. "You need to listen to me," said Vader, his voice laden with urgency that penetrated even through the mechanical distortion. "There is nothing good waiting for you in this reality. Believe me." There was a desperate sincerity in his words that made Anakin pause. "How can I believe you when I don't even know who you are?" He responded with a harsh voice, but didn't attack. Vader took another step toward him, keeping his hands visible. "Join me," he said. "Together we can defeat the Emperor and rule the galaxy. Bring order and peace as you always wanted." The words echoed in the chamber. Anakin felt nausea hearing those words. They echoed thoughts he had had in his darkest moments, fantasies of using his power to force peace on the chaotic galaxy. How did this Sith know even his most secret thoughts? "For the last time I'll ask," said Anakin with a dangerously low voice, advancing with his saber still active. Who are you? Vader remained still, and even through the helmet, Anakin could feel eyes fixed on him. Haven't you figured it out yet from my movements? Asked Vader. How could I know so many things about you? Your deepest fears, your nightmares, every technique you use, every thought that passes through your mind. Anakin stopped, his mind racing as he processed the implications. My name is Darth Vader, said the dark figure. But 10 years ago I was called Anakin Skywalker. The world stopped for Anakin. The lightsaber almost fell from his hand as he processed those impossible words. No, he whispered, refusing to believe. That's a lie, some Sith trick to confuse me. But even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't a lie. Everything made sense now in a horrible and perfect way. The identical movements, the intimate knowledge of his fears, the way Vader spoke as if carrying decades of regret. Vader took another step toward him. Yes, he confirmed with a voice broken by emotion that even the vocoder couldn't hide. You are in the future. I am what you will become. The Force brought you here to unite our forces, to change our destiny. Join me, Anakin, and together we can have the entire galaxy in our hands. Anakin looked at the figure before him, searching for any sign of falsehood. But there was none. Denial transformed into pure anger. If this was true, if that monstrous thing was really his future, then Anakin would do anything to prevent it. He wouldn't become that. He wouldn't allow his future to be that abomination imprisoned in metal and hatred. Never, screamed Anakin, and attacked with renewed ferocity. No longer attempting elaborate techniques, just pure blows of raw power fueled by desperation and determination. Vader was unprepared for the sudden intensity. Anakin channeled all the force he could reach, letting it flow through him without restrictions or control. His blows were devastating, each one loaded with all the force of his refusal to accept that future. Vader retreated, his defense finally breaking under the relentless assault. With a quick lateral movement, Anakin passed through Vader's defense and his saber cut through the Sith Lord's mechanical hand. The hand fell to the floor with a heavy metallic sound, still holding the red saber that deactivated upon touching the ground. Vader staggered back, a guttural sound of pain escaping through the vocoder. Anakin didn't stop. He took advantage of the opening, moving with the deadly grace of a predator. He spun his saber in a precise arc and hit Vader's helmet. The blue blade cut through the black metal, breaking the life support systems in an explosion of sparks and gases. Pieces of circuits exploded, and Vader fell to his knees. The helmet split, a huge crack appearing from the top to the side. Anakin stepped back, his breathing heavy, waiting to see what he had revealed. Gases leaked from the damaged helmet, and Vader breathed with difficulty. Vader's helmet split even more, pieces of metal and circuits raining on the floor around him. Anakin recoiled in horror, seeing what he had revealed beneath that black metal. Through the large crack in the helmet, he could partially see a face, and it was a sight that froze his blood in his veins. The skin was pale as death and marked by deep scars, burns that never healed properly. A yellow eye glowed with the power of the dark side, looking at him with a mixture of pain, sadness, and recognition. It was his face, distorted and destroyed beyond recognition at first sight, but unmistakably his when looked at more closely. Anakin could see familiar features through the horrible scars, the jawline, the shape of the eyes, even the expression amid the pain. This couldn't be real, but it was right there in front of him, living proof of a horrible future that awaited him. Vader didn't try to attack again. He just stayed there on his knees, breathing with difficulty through the damaged systems of the helmet, allowing Anakin to fully see what he would become. Gases continued leaking, and Anakin could hear the life support systems struggling to keep Vader alive. "Now do you believe?" said Vader with a voice even more distorted by the broken helmet, each word coming out with obvious effort. Anakin thought, "This is what awaits you if you continue on the path you're following. Your choices, your fear, your hatred, everything will lead you here, to this living hell." Anakin took several steps back, trembling, his mind refusing to fully process what he was seeing. He looked at his own legs, which were still flesh and bone, and imagined them as Vader's mechanical prosthetics. What horror could have caused those burns? What tragedy could have destroyed his body in that way? He looked at the dimensional rift still glowing behind him, a door back to his reality, to his time where there was still hope. Without thinking, moved only by primitive instinct of escape and pure horror, Anakin ran toward the connection. His feet beat heavily on the metallic floor of the fortress as he fled from that terrible revelation. Vader tried to follow him, rising with difficulty and extending his remaining hand. "Wait," he shouted, his desperate voice echoing through the chamber. But Anakin was already crossing the dimensional barrier, diving through it like a drowning man reaching the surface. The transition was abrupt, and he emerged back on Padme's balcony. The temperature change was shocking, leaving the infernal heat of Mustafar for the cool breeze of the night in Coruscant. Anakin fell to his knees as soon as he returned to his own reality, his legs no longer able to support him. He could hear Vader on the other side trying to pass through the connection, but the barrier wouldn't allow it. The dark side that corrupted Vader prevented him from crossing. Only Anakin with his still pure connection with the Force could make the crossing. Vader beat against the invisible barrier, and Anakin could hear his muffled screams, pleas for him to return, to listen. Eventually, the rift began to close, Vader's image slowly disappearing until only a faint glow remained, and then nothing. Anakin stayed there on the balcony as the first light of dawn began to illuminate Coruscant, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. He had seen his future, and it was more terrible than any nightmare that tormented him. That broken monster was what he would become. The connection finally disappeared completely, leaving Anakin alone with his thoughts. He sat on the balcony, completely stunned, watching the sun rise over the city without really seeing it. All he could see was that disfigured face, those yellow eyes glowing with hatred and pain. And somehow all of that was connected with Padme and his nightmares about her death. The connection was now clear as crystal. His fear of losing her, his inability to accept loss, this would somehow lead to his fall. Fear would be the trigger that would start a chain reaction ending with him as Darth Vader, imprisoned in that torture armor, serving the dark side. Anakin looked through the glass doors at Padme still sleeping, so beautiful and peaceful. He had to protect her, but Vader had shown that protecting her the wrong way would lead to his destruction. He stayed there sitting until Padme woke up and came looking for him. The sunlight was already strong when she opened the doors and stepped out onto the balcony. "Anakin, what happened?" she asked, worried, touching his face gently. He was pale, with deep circles under his eyes. She could see that something was deeply wrong. He hugged her with immediate force, holding her as if she could disappear at any moment, as if she were the only real thing in a world of nightmares. "I had a nightmare," he lied, his voice muffled against her hair. "But it was just a nightmare. I'm fine now." Padme held him back, feeling the tension in his body. She knew he wasn't telling the whole truth, but didn't press. Anakin eventually pulled away, looking into her eyes. He knew he needed guidance, someone who could help him understand what he had seen and how to avoid that future. Completely disturbed and not knowing who else to turn to, Anakin decided to seek Master Yoda. If anyone could make sense of that impossible experience, it would be the Jedi Grand Master. When he arrived at the Jedi Temple, he walked through the corridors as if in a trance, responding to greetings from other Jedi automatically. Finally, he found Yoda in the temple gardens, meditating under an ancient tree whose branches extended like welcoming arms. He approached hesitantly, still not sure how much he should reveal. Could he tell Yoda about the journey through time, about seeing his future self as a Sith Lord? That would sound like madness, as if he were losing his sanity. "Master Yoda, I need your guidance," Anakin said, his voice laden with barely contained desperation. He couldn't completely hide the turbulence he felt. Yoda slowly opened his eyes and studied the young knight with a wise expression that seemed to see through all masks and defenses. "Disturbed you are, young Skywalker," observed Yoda with his soft voice. "Feel in the Force I can, great agitation in you there is." Anakin sat before the Master, choosing his words carefully. He decided to tell a version of the truth, even if not all of it. "I've been having nightmares," he said, and that was true. Visions of people I love suffering, dying, and I fear these dreams are premonitions, that my fear of losing them might cause exactly what I fear. He paused, breathing deeply. Yoda nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting this confession for a long time. His ancient eyes seemed to see through Anakin, seeing not just the man before him but all the possibilities of who he could become. "Fear is the path to the dark side," said Yoda with a gentle but firm voice. "Know this truth you must. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. The path of the dark side, this is." The words hit Anakin like a lightning bolt from the sky. He remembered Vader saying exactly the same thing. "You have much hatred, fear of losing her. I can feel it." It was as if Yoda's warning was echoing through time, confirming what Vader had shown. The pieces finally fell into place in his mind. Anakin finally understood with absolute clarity. It was his own fear that would put him on the dark path. His nightmares, his sick obsession with saving Padme at any cost, his refusal to accept that loss and death were natural parts of life. All of this would fuel the transformation into Vader. Fear was the trigger, the first domino that would cause his fall in an unstoppable cascade. He saw the pattern clearly now, like a trap he would create himself with his own desperate actions. Trying to save Padme, he would destroy everything. Yoda continued speaking, his voice carrying centuries of accumulated wisdom. "Much care you must have when looking to the future, young Skywalker. Always in motion it is, not fixed. Nothing determined is. Your choices today, tomorrow shape. Change the future you can if different choices you make." Anakin clung to these words like a drowning man clings to a piece of wood. The future wasn't written in stone, he could change it. Vader wasn't inevitable if he made different choices. Then Yoda said the words that would change everything. The key that Anakin needed to hear to save himself. "Train to let go of everything you fear to lose, you must." Anakin felt tears burning in his eyes as he finally understood. The solution was so simple but so difficult at the same time. He had to let go of his fear of losing Padme. Not stop loving her, but accept that he couldn't control everything, that some things were beyond his power. He had to trust the Force and accept that death and loss were part of life, part of the natural cycle of existence. Only this way, releasing the paralyzing fear, could he avoid the future that Vader represented. He left Yoda's presence with renewed spirits, a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in months. Knowing that he himself was the only factor that could throw everything away, but also the only one who could save everything. The choice was in his hands, and now he knew exactly what to do. He wouldn't allow fear to control him. Anakin then delved deep into the Jedi fundamentals of detachment. He meditated daily, hours on end, training his mind to release fear. He tried to see Padme not as the only reason for his existence, but as someone he loved deeply but who had her own journey. Anakin trained in himself the mental postures indicated by Yoda, practicing accepting the possibility of loss without being destroyed by it. It was the hardest work he had ever done, harder than any mission or duel. When he discovered that Palpatine was the Sith Lord they were looking for, he didn't hesitate. He immediately told Master Windu, without considering the offers of power that Palpatine could make. Windu told him to wait in the council chamber. Anakin felt the almost irresistible urge to leave, to go help, to ensure that Palpatine was captured. But he didn't. He waited, practicing the detachment he had trained. He learned to let go of his need to control everything, to be at the center of every action. He trusted his fellow Jedi to do what needed to be done. It was one of the hardest things he had ever done, sitting in that room while others dealt with the greatest threat to the galaxy. But he remained. Then Windu returned. "Very well, Skywalker," said Windu, his voice carrying new respect. He really was the Sith Lord. Anakin confirmed himself as the chosen one in that moment, having discovered the Sith and resisted the temptation of the dark side. The council gathered and, recognizing his achievement and maturity, he was absolved for having married in secret. He was promoted to Jedi Master. And Padme, carrying the twins Luke and Leia, survived childbirth days later, living to see her children grow up in a galaxy at peace.